people in this Discord of the YouTube link and be like, hey, this is going to be happening, and then afterwards we're going to be here?
It might be a good one. I can see in the meetup.
You guys have this coffee corner. Yeah, I guess it'd be good to let the announce. I think you can do an announcement on Meetup. It's like a new message to all the RSVP people to remind them. They'll get an email. But also potentially here, after the presentations are done, I'm down to hang out for a little while. I see you have a coffee corner audio channel, and depending on how many people actually show up and want to be here, we might need to open up a few more to have like just general networking.
Yeah,
I think there's like a.
I think currently we.
Well, we can share the link, I guess, also in the YouTube channel. During we can mention it a few times that after the presentation you will be in the coffee corner.
Yeah. I figure in the Q&A it'd be like, oh, by the way, like we're doing this on the Lisk Discord, and come join us afterwards, and we'll be around to answer questions directly. Come talk to us.
Perfect.
Cool.
So is there a reason we're quitting at 8 and then going to the coffee corner, or you can also move on a little bit after 8, or why is it set up to be ending at 8? Just because you chose that time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will start at 8, and
I'm sorry, at 9 o'clock.
Yes. But if you want to talk a little bit longer, it's no problem.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, feel free to cut us off and be like, everybody go to the Discord and hang out.
Yeah.
Cool. Live stream starts now. 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 I just sent a message through Meetup. Yeah. Beginnen. So, welcome to the first meetup we are organizing around our accelerator program. It's a meetup about Polkadot. So, a quick introduction. We are here with Dan and Mark, and we are the Lisk Center Utrecht. We currently have a developer community focusing on blockchain development, but in another way, you can also, of course, call it distributed web development. And I heard that Dan knows a lot about that. And we are looking forward to this first meetup about a platform that is allowing others to build on top of it. And in the next few weeks, we will also have other platforms to introduce, for example, IOTA or Lisk. But I'm very curious, looking forward to this meetup because I don't know anything about Polkadot, and I heard that I will learn all about it today. So Dan and Mark, you can introduce yourself, and I will just listen.
Sure. Well, thank you, Yoda, so much for hosting me. I'm very excited. I'm in a little bit in the same boat that I don't know very much about Lisk, so forgive me. Be patient with me. I do know a fair amount about Polkadot, and I really am excited to tell you a little bit about that today. So again, thanks for having me. And maybe Mark, you can introduce yourself, and I can jump into my presentation and tell you a little bit more about me.
Yeah, sure. Hello, Lisk Center community. I'm Mark, and I will be addressing the Polkadot side from the community point of view, and then we'll get into the technical side. So have fun.
Awesome. All right. So Yoda, let me make sure that you can see my screen here. In one moment. All right. Hopefully you're seeing my slides now.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Cool. So thanks again. My name is Dan Shields, and I am a support engineer working for Parity. And this is the company that's primarily building out Polkadot. And as we'll find out, very many other blockchain technologies, Web3 technologies. I also am a steward of the Cryptorado community. So out here in Colorado in the USA, that's where I happen to reside. We do a lot of things with cryptocurrency and blockchain. If you're ever out here, come and contact me. I'd love to introduce you to our local community. But so let's, before we get into anything else, talk a little bit more about blockchains in general, right? So blockchains effectively all have these core components, right? Is you need some kind of database layer. This is the blockchain, right? You need a P2P networking so that all these nodes can communicate with the other peers who are on this network. You need some mechanism in which you can do block authoring, right? So who gets to propose these new blocks, who gets to actually compose them and then issue them out onto the network. And then we need to have some kind of fork choice. So if there is some kind of discrepancy amongst the network around what the blocks are, the true canonical blocks on the chain, you need to be able to negotiate what's the right thing to do. And then transaction handling. You need a way for the network to receive new transactions, as we call them here. They're extrinsics, as we'll get more into, and a way to process them and put them into these blocks. And then how do you actually put them into these blocks is the state transition function. And specifically, we like to call this out as the runtime of the blockchain. This is how you get new blocks from nothing with all these new transactions into something that's actually published so we can move forward as a network together. And Parity Technologies, this company I'm excited to be working for, has a lot of blockchain building experience. So you guys might be familiar with Open Ethereum. This is, I think, the second most popular client for Ethereum nodes behind Geth. And so we built this at Parity, and now it's open sourced and is community maintained primarily. Also, we have Parity Bitcoin, which is out there in the world. There's a Parity Zcash implementation, I believe, as well, and a few others. And finally, the thing that we are here to talk more about today is Polkadot, right? This is really the culmination in the dream of Gavin Wood, that people might be familiar with, around a different kind of blockchain, right? And in building all these blockchains, and specifically building Polkadot, emerged Substrate. So we'll dive into more of what Substrate is, but effectively, it is a framework to build blockchains in general, because we have a lot of experience building blockchains, with the intent to make parachains. So that's really what we're after. So before we dive into Substrate, because this is what this talk will focus on, a little high-level view of what Polkadot is probably required. So Polkadot is a network that wants to be a blockchain, a layer 0 blockchain. So what does that mean? It means that it itself is not going to have many of the things that you're used to on a typical blockchain like Ethereum right now. it will not have things like smart contracts. And right now, it has things like governance that are built in, but eventually, all of the functionality, except for the core components of what make Polkadot what it is, will be pushed out to the what are called parachains and parathreads. Effectively, the things like the smart contracts and the governance things that will be processed by independent blockchain networks. So Polkadot wants to be a layer 0 relay network. It wants to be able to coordinate between independent other blockchains that exist out there in the world. For instance, through bridges to other networks that could potentially be other relay chains that are out there in the world. Itself will be a relay chain that connects via slots here with validators that coordinate between coallators of a totally independent blockchain network. I shouldn't say totally independent. So we'll get more into the details after I tell you a little bit more about Substrate, because what Substrate allows you to do is create these networks, create these bridges, create these parathreads and parachains that connect to Polkadot. So we'll come back on Polkadot, but let's dive a little bit more into what Substrate is. Substrate is an open source, modular, and extensible framework for building blockchains, any kind of blockchain. Those who are familiar with Rust, this is what it's built in. You might recognize some of the other frameworks that in general are there here for web development in Rust. But that's really one of the powerhouses here. And one of the things I'm a biggest fan of is Substrate in general is built using Rust and Wasm. So very powerful technologies, and there's a lot of reasons that we can get into in the Q&A if you want to about why we've chosen these tools. But so what is core to what Substrate is, right? It provides all of the core components that we went over at the very beginning about what a blockchain needs. It's got this database layer built in, it's got a networking layer built in, transaction queue, consensus engines, and a library of runtime modules. And specifically, this modules part is the important part here. All of these can be customized and completely extended to whatever your use case is. This is the power of Substrate. You don't have to think about all of these things unless you want to. These come out of the box with the framework, and you can configure them to your specific needs. So this is effectively what a Substrate node looks like, right? What comes in for you is this block storage, right? This is the blockchain storage, as well as all of the storage for your node is going to be in here, and we'll get more into that in a moment, as well as an RPC server. So this is a common practice in the industry to have this remote procedure call. It's a JSON interface in particular that you can issue things like transactions and whatnot from the outside world. And then transaction pool is here that's auto executing for you. And there's a lot of smart logic that comes in by default. An executor that's actually in charge of processing what's coming in through these transaction pools and getting them submitted into blocks. libp2p is the networking stack that we use to actually connect through your peers that are available there, at least by default. And then consensus engines, which are pluggable. So proof of authority is available. Polkadot is built using Substrate, and the choice there is nominated proof of stake. I won't get into the details here, but you can choose the kind of consensus engine you'd like. And then finally, as a really convenient feature, there's out-of-the-box Prometheus telemetry, so that you get a lot of statistics and reports so you can monitor these nodes out there in the wild. So interacting with this node typically comes in from the outside. JSON RPC is the default. You can set up whatever you'd like. And then it coordinates with the transaction pool. And this executor is going to be the thing that's actually interacting with the runtime to get things into blocks. And I won't get into the details unless you guys want to in the Q&A afterwards. One of the very special things that happens in Substrate is out of the box, we include the runtime itself that's built in Wasm. This is WebAssembly. This is included in the runtime storage. So specifically, you can have all of the logic for what's happening on your node contained within the blockchain itself. And this enables forkless runtime upgrades. So the specifics we don't have time to talk about, but it's a really cool, powerful feature that you get out of the box by default, if you'd like. So when the runtime actually executes all this stuff, you can communicate it out through the network once you come to consensus on this thing, and then shoot out some telemetry to make sure your node is operating as you expect. But diving a little bit more into this section, right? This blocks in particular, and the runtime that's stored in this blockchain node storage, right? It defines really all of the state transition, the runtime here, right? And all of the API calls that are there. And So these state transitions, whatever you're calling from the outside world, are persisted into block storage. And we're able to define what the runtime is with an element within the storage itself. So this is this powerful component, this forkless runtime upgrades. And then specifically, frame is what's going to be used here. And this is our modular framework that helps you simplify developing this runtime and updating it and doing forkless runtime upgrades and things like this. So what is frame, right? Frame is a configurable by traits in Rust interface to be able to plug into all these different modules. There's a bunch of different storage abstractions, so you don't have to think about this key value store super in depth. You're able to think about it much more abstractly and use a lot of these interfaces that we provide for you, primitives right out of the box that are pretty safe to use. It also provides errors and events. So when things actually occur on your network, you're able to push these out and let others know, including whoever is monitoring the node, about things that are happening. And dispatch extrinsics, as we call them. These are typically what you think of as transactions. There is a public interface via pub function and the RPC that enable you to interact with this. And the primitives right out of the box are able to specify things like who is submitting these calls. So you're able to validate specifically the addresses and things that are coming through. And then scale types, as we'll find out, is encoding and decoding byte-wise, very efficient storage that's catered specifically to whatever your blockchain use case is, to keep things compact and as efficient as possible, because that's definitely core to making a blockchain really work functionally. And I want to make sure I still have you guys. I heard a drop off. Are we still good? Yep. Okay, cool. So with Frame, then, it allows you to compose palettes. These are the independent modules that you want to have within your runtime. So there's plenty of libraries that are supported by Parity that have all kinds of different functionality. But there's also many open source and community ones that are driven as well. This is the exciting part, is that we highly encourage people and make it very easy to take a template of a palette and make whatever kind of functionality you'd like. So this could potentially be an on-chain identity palette. It could include things like a treasury, so who's managing governance and things and funds that go on-chain. Can be functionality like an absolute admin that we use for development purposes. So all these can be plugged in and composed as you see fit and interact with each other. So it's a very powerful tool. So with all that said, hopefully I've given you some exciting reasons to check out Substrate. So substrate.dev is definitely the place to start here. There's all kinds of tutorials, and these basically give you the 101 stuff. I would definitely recommend starting there first. And then recipes that have much more catered examples of how to get a very specific thing done in your blockchain, common things that people want to do. And then every other Tuesday, we have a seminar. So this is kind of the bleeding edge. We have somebody who's a practitioner in the Substrate world come and talk. And all of these are also available historically on our YouTube channel. So we've got a lot of great content. And then I would definitely invite you guys to join. We have a Matrix channel here, and you can scan this QR code to come and join us. Element, I believe, is the app that it'll probably redirect you to. We also have this linked up to our Discord, which I think we can share with you guys on the YouTube stream, as well as in the Lisk meetup, the Discord there. So you can come and talk to us via the Polkadot official Discord as well. And then to give you a sense, there's a whole bunch of template projects and things. There's a lot of functionality to get you started to use this tool and to help you understand it, because it's a pretty complex tool to use. And if you want to just try things around, I want to introduce you to Substrate Playground. It turns out that this code base, it takes a long time to compile. So Rust is a compiled language, and this is the single largest, as far as I know it, Rust code base in the world right now. So we give you the ability to compile this thing on a very powerful machine so you can quickly get through builds and play around to just experiment if you'd like. But keep in mind, this is a temporary thing for learning purposes, so you can't really save. It's just to try things out. And I think with that, I'll circle back to Polkadot, right? Substrate enables you to do any kind of blockchain that you'd like, but in particular, this idea of Polkadot enabling parachains is the real kicker. So if you would like to compose your runtime in such a way that your consensus engine is linked to Polkadot, Polkadot can become a relay network for you to connect to other blockchains, but specifically as a parachain, you're very tightly coupling the consensus engine with Polkadot's consensus engine. So what happens on Polkadot network is that validators on the Polkadot network will coordinate with these collators, and these are the guys who you can think of are collecting all of the all of the transactions and processing blocks. They're authoring blocks for an independent parachain network, and then the actual consensus is being validated by the Polkadot validators. So collators and validators, they come together and they actually validate state transition. So the validators are processing your blocks, and according to the runtime, because that's in the storage that you have there, validate that it's going, there's no foul play that's happening there. So Polkadot enables you to use this substrate framework to make any arbitrary blockchain, but then helps you bootstrap so that you have interoperability as well as a very robust security that's built right in. You don't need to bootstrap your own network. With these collators, you only need a handful, maybe even just one collator, and you have the security guarantees of the Polkadot network. So you'd have to overcome all of the game theoretic incentives that we have in our nominated proof of stake network to have a chance at trying to override anything that's going on these parachains. So out of the box, you're able to create a very robust blockchain. And if you plug into a Polkadot, you don't have to worry about scaling your network and the security is taken care of for you. So that's the vision, is that you can create an optimized for whatever your specific need is, standalone blockchain, but you don't have to do anything but make it do exactly what it's supposed to do. Optimize it just for that task. So I think with that, that's me. That's all I can say. Hopefully I've left you with a lot of questions. So let's connect. Let's talk about those things. You can hit me up afterwards later with any of these guys. And I'll also be hanging out, I believe, in the list Discord, and we can do some Q&A directly afterwards with anything you want. And I think that's it for me.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
A really good overview of Polkadot. For me, it's the first time I read a little bit about it before, but I didn't really understand the differences between Substrate and Polkadot. I think if there are questions, you can post them in the YouTube channel or in another way if you can reach us. I myself will start with a question already, because you at the end you talked about collators and validators, but for example if you talk about Ethereum or Bitcoin, then you always have like one set of miners, if I'm correct.
Right.
I don't yet really understand how that works. Are the collators specifically for a specific chain, or and are the validators for the whole ecosystem? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I can point you to some resources that go into detail about specifically what the roles are, but you can think of collators in a parachain are dedicated to that specific subnetwork. So let's say we had a smart contract network, right? And they're going to run just smart contracts. That's all they do, right? There's no other functionality. The collators are going to be taking calls from the outside world, so people submitting transactions, people putting in new contracts, and they're connecting those collators to say, here's a new block. It's got all of this information in it, and what Polkadot will do is then coordinate with the collators to process those blocks, to validate that the runtime transition is actually valid, and then cement that header information, so not the block itself, just the header piece, into the Polkadot blockchain. So it will be the root of security, but it's up to the collators to maintain their own network. So the collators here are actually going to be the archival nodes, effectively, you can think of. They're responsible for maintaining the network and being the store of data, but the security of that data, making sure that each transition is correct, is coordinated with Polkadot, so it's very tightly coupled.
Thank you. Yes, that clears it up. I will check a few questions. I don't see anything coming yet.
Cool. Well, people can think about it, and potentially, if you want to share out to the a link to the Discord here. So if people are shy in the chat and think of something in the meantime, they can come and ask me afterwards.
Yes. So we will share a link to this Discord in the YouTube chat, and then I of course have another question because so we are part of the Lisk network, so we understand a lot how all the things are what are happening over there. And what we realized at one point was that it was not possible to learn about all the networks out there. But nowadays we come to a point that there are a couple of networks that are becoming more and more mature. So it might be a competition, but on the other hand, maybe some have a different function or grow simultaneously. So how does Polkadot see like bridges to those other platforms?
So this is actually one special subset of parachain. It can be a bridge. So in the this idea that a parachain is optimized to a specific task, I believe it's Bifrost. I've forgotten. There's a project specifically, for instance, connecting to Ethereum, and its only job is to be a direct one-to-one bridge. So it's going to be relaying messages back and forth from the Ethereum main chain, or it could be like the Lisk main chain, right? So these bridges can independently be the connector. So it'll have Polkadot sits aside, has its validators, and a parachain that is a bridge directly has collators, and their job is effectively to have a node from the Polkadot side, so they're operating a validator effectively, as well as a node from the Ethereum or the Lisk network, and they coordinate the messages between on their node. So the vision there is for those bridges to connect to anything. And my guess is that a lot of these will end up as para threads, and there's some subtle differences around how those end up working. But yet, in the end, Polkadot wants to effectively be the connector amongst any arbitrary blockchain. Could be the parachains that rely heavily on Polkadot, or it could be any standalone chain.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So so I also saw a lot of similarities to Lisk. I think architecture-wise, so they have kind of the same strategy by becoming like a simple base layer and letting other chains like doing all the innovative stuff, basically. But you said that at the core components from Polkadot will be pushed to the parachains, for example, the governance.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to say a little bit more about that? Because currently you have governance within the core network.
Yep. So the idea is Substrate enables you to build a blockchain that can be hyper optimized because of Polkadot's intrinsic security if you're plugging into it. So what right now we'd like to do is hyper optimize Polkadot to be a relayer, and that's all it does. It's got absolute rock solid security so that we know that all the state transitions of everyone who's all these different collators are connecting to it is going good. So if we have a parachain network that's now in charge of governance, all of the security guarantees happen through Polkadot, but all of the overhead of orchestrating the governance and all the calls that go on there are dedicated to a subnetwork effectively. So these collators are the things that are doing all of this processing. So the only thing that Polkadot itself will need to do is validate the state transition and cement the header information. So it optimizes it so it can be more and more scalable is the idea. So that's the vision of Polkadot, and I think we're still a little ways until those things get pieced out. We're just now playing on Rococo as our test network for parachains. So sometime this year-ish, I really can't speak to exact timelines. I'm not on the core team, but we should be seeing these come onto Kusama first, This is the cousin network of Polkadot, which the subtext to this is that expect chaos. So it's real money in this stuff. Like there's a market for these tokens that are there. But generally the code is less audited and things are maybe more keen to break. So first Kusama, and when things are stabilized there, then we'll start to see parachains and things arrive on Polkadot, and we'll see this functionality start to move into those parachains.
Thanks. Some questions are coming in also. First one, are parachains comparable to second layer on Ethereum?
I think somewhat, but these are very specific structure for parachains in terms of the state transitions, how they happen collectively. So whereas a layer 2 solution, for instance, like payment channels, right? You'll set up on chain one time a locked channel effectively, and then you coordinate completely offline and then come back and finalize later. Whereas parachains, the state transition function, so this is every new block has to be tightly coupled with the Polkadot or the relay network that you're connecting to. So here, every state transition that you'd like to do needs to be reported back. So there's similarities in the sense that we're offboarding things that the relay network needs to do, but the architecture is different. There's definitely nuance, and you can use them both, right? You can have a different, you can think of each parachain as its own layer 1 blockchain. And by layer 1, I mean it's equivalent to something like Ethereum or to Lisk, where all of the functionality is there that you would expect. So you can use a parachain and build a layer on top of it like payment channels. Yeah, so both are possible.
Thanks. And how about the compatibility with EVM smart contracts and the EWASM?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with EWASM, which, so maybe you can come talk to me afterwards. But the Ethereum smart contracts are we have a pluggable module out of the libraries that Parity supports in Substrate for the EVM. So you can deploy Solidity contracts to it, and there's a few different projects, I think, that actually build more than just the EVM. All of the things that you're, typically associate with like the RPC and things can be built into the Substrate network. So one project that comes to mind is Moonbeam is doing this directly. So it's effectively a plug and play solution for Ethereum. You can use all the same tooling. So like MetaMask, you just redirect to a custom network. You can use Truffle, you can use Remix and deploy right to their network, and everything works as you would expect.
Thanks. I didn't get it yet. I need to learn a little bit more about Ethereum too. But
Sure.
I hope that answered the question for Jury in this case. Also, Christian says, thanks about the last question you answered. Now Naman asks why you choose Rust.
Yeah. So I know we're getting close to maybe Mark being able to present, but I'll give you a little sense. Like Rust is a language, I believe that if you look at Rust, I think it's rustlang.org or rust.org, they want to be secure and super fast, and I forget the other one, but effectively the secure part is very important, and it's a systems programming language. So the traits and types interfaces that we expose in the Substrate language, as you start to become accustomed to it, it makes it super powerful. So like these modules, these palettes, we use types and traits, and you're able to unbox an unbelievable amount of automatically generated code by just understanding the interface and configuring it as you see fit. So basically you say, like, what is an account ID? Is this abstract idea that we've left up to you to define? And you say, oh, it's this public private key algorithm, right? And that's all you need to do. So that's one very powerful feature of Rust that enables you to make this. And then what, if you've never played with Rust before, they call it fighting the borrow checker. Rust is really good at helping guide you to understand the errors that are going on. The error messages are great. They're very informative. And more than that, though, it's going to absolutely make sure that your memory management is rock solid, unless you explicitly use this keyword unsafe. So in distributed systems and blockchains in particular, this is paramount to the whole system. We got to make sure that no funny business is going on, and Rust really helps you avoid some of the major pitfalls that happen like C++, where people can exploit the code that's there. The other reason is using Rust to produce WASM. So this is probably the best language to write WASM presently. It compiles down to the smallest and most efficient WASM blobs. And as it turns out, we use those WASM blobs as your runtime. So you craft your runtime with all these palettes and things, and it pops out a WASM blob that gets put onto your blockchain network, and that's the runtime engine. So WASM is super powerful in terms of what you're able to do, and because it can be compiled down to this universally accepted bytecode and be run there, it's a native fit for this forkless runtime thing.
Thanks. And then maybe just one last question, and then we go to Mark. It's a question from Divaye. I hope I pronounced it correct. What are other level 0 platforms that come close to Polkadot's vision? Let's say their direct competitor.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and admittedly, I'm very much immersed in Polkadot because that's what I do for my day job. So I can't necessarily talk to who else wants to be this layer 0. I have heard in general people talk of similar interoperability and shared consensus going on in projects like Cosmos, but I don't know the exact implementation they're using and how they end up. In my mind, this idea of having a parachain in this closely coupled consensus, I don't know if there's another competitor out there who's doing it, at least in this fashion.
Good, interesting. Yeah, I think Lisk indeed, like interoperability, Lisk, and also it comes in that direction, and maybe Cosmos too. So maybe we can get a selection of those platforms together on the stage later on.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, then we can compare, but that's something for another moment. Thank you very much for the talk.
Anytime.
Let's go to Mark then.
Hello, hello. You want me to start off immediately?
Yes, you can have the stage, and I will stay quiet for the next 20 minutes.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Can you view it good? So let me first introduce myself a little bit. I am not a tech guy like Dan, and I'm also not professionally involved in Polkadot. As Dan is professionally an engineer at Parity, I am a volunteer in the ambassador program. And in the program, I mainly focus on the moderation and meetups, events like we're doing now. By education, I am a social worker. And by profession, I'm a business owner in construction and construction materials. So whole other game. I'm also ambassador at Akala. And Dan already addressed the parachain side a little bit. And Akala will be, when it goes live, parachain on the Polkadot relay chain. And if you want, as Lisk community, get into Akala in the future, then be my guest to invite me again. Just a little bit about the parachain and Akala. Akala was the first project which obtained a parachain slot on the Rococo testnet. So that's typical for what Akala has achieved now. And it also had the first successful cross-parachain token transfer with Hydra, decentralized exchange. So that's maybe just for the info is nice. I'm not going to get into that any further. I will continue with the community side. But before I go into the community, I think we have to realize that Polkadot as a ecosystem is not 100% decentralized at the moment, but it is essentially decentralized. And therefore, the community actually has no leadership. So whatever initiatives or input is coming from the community, they all have to do it on their own. And of course, collaborating. But that's worthwhile mentioning. And then we'll see when I get into the community further what consequences that has for the community. Now, I would say that the heart of our community and all the initiatives that are taken mainly start and initiate from our Discord server, the Polkadot official. I'm also moderating Polkadot Plus Discord server. The difference between Polkadot official server and the Polkadot Plus server is, well, maybe compared to Polkadot and Kusama, Polkadot Plus is expect chaos. So on Plus, anything can be discussed and there is more room for, let's say, speculation and price talk, while on the official Polkadot server, it's more about the environment and problems people have with it, whether it's technically or whether it's nominating, validating, etc. From Discord, we also have the other social media, of course, but I want to address one thing very much, and that is, for example, we were on Telegram, very active there, but as Telegram showed to be a very big scam site for different kind of scam projects, we withdrew from that and mainly do everything from Discord. So Telegram, we just have a read section there and nothing else. Now, getting into our community, and they are acting in this decentralized space and this permissionless space. You, of course, have the team, and it's not a Polkadot team because Polkadot doesn't have a team. Polkadot is the environment, is the garden in which everything grows. But you have Dan from Parity, and you have the Web3 team, and they are most of the time also on the Discord channels, and you can address them, contact them whenever that's necessary. What we see a lot is developers visiting the Discord server. As we speak now, I think about 400 projects are developing in the Polkadot ecosystem, so you can see there's a lot of activity. And they also come to the Discord channels to discuss problems or initiatives or developments. So that's very nice to see. I would also invite you people to visit our Discord servers to just check it out all out. It's a very nice space to be. Now, then you have the enthusiasts, of course, who just visit. We have the investors, and by investors, I think I mean the validators and the nominators. And for those of you who are not familiar with the validating and nominating parts of Polkadot, it's not a very simple thing to do for, let's say, the common person. So we get a lot of questions, how to nominate, how to validate, problems with nominating, problems with validating as well, of course. And then the fifth part, and that's what I want to get into now, is the ambassador program, which I'm also part of. Anybody can apply for the ambassador program. So if one of you people watching now want to join, feel free. You're welcome. And we have a very nice community to take part in. So first off, you start as a candidate, and by contributing to whatever you want to do in the environment, and your initiatives, after a period of time, you can be selected to become ambassador. And then when you, let's say, do your initiatives as an ambassador, you can apply yourself for a senior ambassador position or a head ambassador position. Anything is possible. And that's a very important thing for our communities, that because we are decentralized, anything is possible. There is no owner of Polkadot. There is no one steering the ship, to put it like that, for initiatives. So when we get questions from people, can I do this? Can I do that? Basically, any question can be answered with, yes, you can. Anything is possible. How can you get involved in our community? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the ambassador program. You can also do it just by being enthusiastic and doing things in the community environment. We have several working groups. I'm now going to talk about this from the ambassador point of view. There are several working groups you can, let's say, focus yourself on. It's not an if-if. You can do every working group if you want. And I'll be addressing some of the stuff that's happening in the working groups one by one. So if we talk about developers, as I said before, about 400 projects are now developing in the Polkadot ecosystem. So they can use a lot of contribution, a lot of help. They have problems that need to be addressed. So, but a different kind of thing is, as it is permissionless to act in the Polkadot ecosystem, how can you be sure that a project you're watching or a project you want to invest in is a legit project, as there is no one to turn to ask the question, is this a legit project? So if we then go to my side of things, as I focus on community moderation, you can see that the community really comes together as it comes to questions like this: is a project legit? And that's where I love our community, because then you see all kinds of people acting on this question. So some people will just look into the team that's developing for the project. Some people will look into where it's hosted from. Some people will look in if there is already scam information about a project. And all this information together makes it, well, let's say legit or not. But there is no official office that says that a project is legit. But that's a consequence of the, well, let's say permissionless environment. And that's where our community is, I think, super strong. We have a very active a group of people that address questions like this. Then I want to go to, let's say, the events, what I'm also focusing on myself. So momentarily, and this is just a little bit, let's say, info with numbers, we have about 55 to 60 meetup groups around the world in about 40 countries. And mainly everything now is, of course, online and not physical. But in the future, when lockdown with COVID will end, more physical events can and will start. And the beautiful thing about, I think, Polkadot community or Polkadot environment is that Web3 will support you in your meetups or in your events as you are contributing to the Polkadot ecosystem. So, for example, expenses you make for your events, you can fill out a form, ask Web3 for support, and of course there are some requirements. But basically, if you are contributing to the environment, Web3, the Web3 Foundation will support you with t-shirts, with stickers, with everything that's, well, that applies to an event. Then again, to the moderation part, which I mainly focus on, we see that because Polkadot is 100%, well, not 100%, but almost 100% decentralized, we see a lot of projects claiming partnerships with Polkadot, but there is no partnerships with Polkadot because you can just you can just make something in the Polkadot ecosystem without any permission from whoever there is. Now, as you are in the ambassador program like me, or if you want to apply, there are some nice earnings you can do as you are an ambassador. There is the Polkadot pathways, and this is like a playground to get to know the Polkadot ecosystem, but also how everything works, from validating, nominating. And there are some courses which you can do, which I'm showing now. You can click on them, you can investigate, you can get informed about everything that is Polkadot, and you can earn points. And by earning these points, you can get gift cards, t-shirts, stickers, things like that. And it's nice just to get the community stimulated and to make them participate. Also, but that's let's say a digital thing, by going through the Polkadot pathways, you can also collect, I would say it's almost NFT badges, but it's not NFT, but I'd like to call it that. And by collecting your badges, you open up new ways to do more on the playground and get even more badges. Well, some people just like that. And that's also to stimulate people to participate. Now, rounding up a little bit, I think the most strong thing about our community is that we don't see Polkadot as, let's say, the one and only blockchain. We have no tribalism. I think Polkadot is not the only project as within the community, but that we see not one chain will be able to address the world or help the world. So we know we have to interact with others, and that's why we are open to any project, any blockchain, and we think that with cooperation you get much further. Then, as I said, what I like about our environment is we have the freedom to do anything. And, well, actually, that's almost limitless. And then, by finishing off, what I like is all ranks within the Polkadot ecosystem, up to our founder, Dr. Gavin Wood. I want to give an example. One of our ambassadors made a rap, and he directly addressed to Gavin and shared it with him, and he got a very nice answer from him because he was accessible. And that's what I also like about our community. And I think I can finish off with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
so much. It's it really gives a good overview of the community and what you guys are like doing for the whole network, because you actually after an hour I think you are doing so much, and the network has grown so fast over the last 1.5 years. So if there are questions, I will probably see them coming in. But the what I really like is those what you said, the NFT likes.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not NFT, by the way, but I like to address it like that.
but is it that if you earn some of them, that you can also earn more of them? That you have to level up, for
Y-
example?
Yes, you can look at it like that. So when you finish a certain part of the playground, you get a badge, and because when you have 10 badges, you open up another portal to another section with badges, more badges, and some people really go crazy about it.
Is it also does it also provide some insight in who is more mature in the in coding or in the community, or don't you have?
Well,
Does
it certainly says that on the pathways side of things, the more badges you have, the more you have explored everything that's possible on Polkadot. So, because pathways is only accessible for ambassadors, so you know if somebody has a lot of badges, then he probably explored a lot.
Thanks. I get one question. What are the projects being built on Polkadot right now you are the most looking forward to?
Well, I'm prejudiced, of course, because I'd say take a guess. It's gonna be Akala for me because I'm also Akala ambassador.
Yeah, but why is that then? No.
Um, it's one of the most exciting from 400 projects building in the ecosystem. I don't know all of them, so there might be another project which is even better than Akala. But as let's say, because it's a DeFi hub, Akala, it's the best I have seen, and I've tested because they have a testnet running, and I've looked at it and I've used it, and it's pretty awesome. So I would just say just check it out,
Yeah.
and probably you'll like it.
Perfect. And maybe I can also ask this question to Dan from the technical perspective and his personal preference.
So, what am I most excited about in general in the Polkadot ecosystem?
Yeah, which projects?
Hmm. Well, I might be biased because my day job is with Parity. And one thing I am really looking forward to is, and I can pass this link to you guys, is it's called Statement. This is an internal project that's going on right now that will be the first, what we're calling a public good parachain. And uh, without getting too much into the details, there'll be these things called crowd loans that are going on where people are auctioning off these, where Polkadot is auctioning off slots to become parachains. And a public good parachain, which Statement might be the first of, um, gets to bypass the auction process. Instead, it's being given a spot without having to put down this deposit that's otherwise needs to be auctioned in. And this will be done through governance. So if the governance of Polkadot, everyone who's contributing to this, decides that this should basically get a free ticket to become a parachain, Statement is effectively going to be a mint for tokens. So what people expect, at least that'll be one of its aspects. What people are expecting typically is, they want to produce a token of their own, right, and interact with it in some way. Statement can be the archetype and allow this functionality natively on the Polkadot ecosystem, because Polkadot itself won't support this because of that idea. It wants to be a relayer only in the longer term.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. And maybe a small link. I really like the community you both have, like from the technical perspective, but also from what you told Mark about that is a project legit. I'm constantly thinking about those things from my perspective. That how do you check those things? But it's really cool that you, as a community, act like that and actually just try to solve that problem in your way.
Yeah, and that's at the moment. I think Dan will agree with me. A big problem. The scammers come from everywhere, and we get a lot of questions whether projects are scams or not. And well, I'm very proud to say that Dan is many times also part of that. We just investigate. We just ask around, we just look into stuff, because we don't have a bureau which says, yes, legit, no, not legit. This one has a permit, this one doesn't have, because anything goes in our environment. And I'm really proud to say most of the time, it also happened that a project was legit. The question was asked, we dove into it, and then people from that project eventually joined because they saw, well, this has to be solved. And that's what the community does. Because most, I think, and that's very sad, mostly people find out the hard way, and we want them to come to us to ask the question, and then we don't know it always, but we can dive into it and we get the answer one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's just being part of such an innovative space.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't have any further questions. I'd like to correct me if I'm wrong, and sorry about the lightning. The sun went down. I didn't count on that. But I learned that Substrate is like a tool set to build your own chains on Polkadot, and you have like a modular architecture with which you can do that very well. And Rust is the language that makes you make it faultless, if that's the correct word. And I feel like the Polkadot community has a really community feeling, and you are doing a lot of things to actually inspire the community, but also attract all different kinds of people and organize different kind of activities for them. So I'm very, very happy to have this talk, and everybody who wants to know more about Polkadot can join their Discord. The links are shown and shared. And if you want to talk with Dan or Mark afterwards, then you have to join the Disk Center Utrecht Discord too. But I'd like to thank you, and if you have some last words, just throw them out.
Say thank you so much again for hosting us. This was a lot of fun, and please do, come and join us on Discord. I'll be around live after this for a little while to ask any more questions in the list Discord, and then I'm on the Polkadot Discord all the time. So come and chat with us there.
Yeah, my final words would be, ik zou blij zijn dat ik een beetje nog in het Nederlands kon houden. Because the English is sometimes, a little bit difficult, but hey, we manage. Thank you very much for having me, and also Dan.
Thank you for the presentations, and let's continue to talk afterwards.
See you there.